1. This is a story that occurred in Ohio. Names have been changed, and most of the info was second-hand, or rumors, keep that in mind. So during the early days of Pokemon Go, it was everywhere. Everyone was playing, the streets of my relatively small town were flooded. I was no exception. I played religiously, biked around to hatch eggs and leveling gyms, quite a feat with the old system. We had a few out-of-town players every now and then, but as the game began to dwindle in popularity, it really was just around 40 people in our town. One of them was a local man, Kay. Kay was an entitled dick. He owned a local second-hand video game store his father had purchased for him. He mostly ripped people off and being a dick towards everyone. He stayed in business because he bought people's old games for more than GameStop. He was way into Pokemon Go, and since he was how he was, he had to be better than anyone talking him down to other players and making fun of children for saving low CP Pokemon. Total prick. He would travel to Columbus to play and level gyms and come back bragging to us. Too busy with work to drop everything to go, he would go there and be gone for a week or two and come back. But after a while I noticed he didn't go on his monthly trip anymore. I asked him what was up, but he only got frustrated and made an excuse and left. I was relatively close with one of his employees, and they told me that it was too dangerous up there. See, what nobody knew or could have predicted is that Pokemon Go was very popular in the hood of Columbus. I don't know if they all played or just had younger siblings playing, but they got tired of him coming up to level everything, so they confronted him, at first asking if they could at least leave some of the gyms up so everyone could play. He started off and said he could do what he wanted, and they couldn't do anything about it. So they told him if they saw him again, they would jump him and his friends. So he couldn't go up there for the fear of getting jumped, but as cowardly as he was entitled. How dare they tell him he couldn't play in their neighborhood anymore? But around this time, Pokemon Go released region-specific Pokemon, and GPS spoofing started to gain popularity. He went all in now. He could spoof his location to anywhere, which made him happy. He spoofed to everywhere, Japan, Australia. Anywhere he heard had a rare Pokemon. He often came over to the local hotspot bragging about how, even though he could change his location and play from his shop, he still wanted to brag and belittle us regular players. After a few weeks, though, I noticed less and less people in my town were playing. Then I noticed every time I leveled a gym and put my Pokemon in it, it would be down before I could even pedal away. I mentioned it to another person I used to play with, and he said the same thing had happened, and that someone who was playing had a weapon pulled on them, and their phone stolen, so everyone stopped walking around. I was stubborn, though, so I still went out doing my best. I spoke to my friend who worked for Kay, asking him if he could help, and he said no, but he did answer some questions I didn't know. Apparently, since Kay could spoof his location, he decided to spoof to Columbus and level their gyms again, so they started looking for him. For anyone unaware, when you put a Pokemon in a gym, it would show the Pokemon trainer that caught it and where they were from, so they started coming to our town looking for him. So Kay had to disappear, at least from public. But he still spoofed and played, still was a dick, even though he wouldn't go out and play. He was more than content to play and run his mouth online to anyone he could about the game. Now, I don't know if it was the people from Columbus or someone else, but someone started hacking him, messing with his internet, things like that. Between that and our new visitors, he had a lot of unwanted attention. Eventually they found out about his shop, so they would hang out trying to find him, which brought the attention of the local police, who at first were there to keep an eye on things, but apparently they received an anonymous tip that Kay was buying stolen property. Then they noticed a lot of weird things about his shop, mostly that a lot of thieves and addicts came and went a lot, so they looked closer, eventually got a warrant, and shit went down. Now remember, this info came from a friend, so I don't have all the details. But the police were able to get a search warrant for possible stolen property, and they went in and found several stolen systems, games, trading cards, and while they were investigating, they also found that someone was selling coke in the shop. So everything was seized and he and some of the people there were arrested and charged. The shop was closed and everything calmed down, and people played again until eventually everyone lost interest. 2. So first, some background information. My mom owns a dental office, and she just came back from a 3-week vacation and left me in charge of the office. Now, my job description is quite complicated because I am only available to help during the summers. And I know it may seem like I don't know what I'm doing because I got this job out of nepotism, but this is the first summer in almost 8 summers of working there, where I feel I actually could handle the weight of the title of the office manager. Something I've been trying to help my pushover mom with is standardizing policies. She grants a lot of exceptions to her patients and is very annoying unless she has an office manager who can stop her. But the pandemic lost us our last office manager, so I've tried to step up. We don't have a lot of difficult patients, but still, I knew there would be some pushback about enforcing policies. But I don't stay in the front a lot, and I'm young, so this was my first real experience with an entitled Karen, and I'm pretty proud of how I handled it. So while my mom was gone, our associate dentist saw patients a few days a week, so I was the final authority if the more experienced staff has an issue. So one day a patient comes in and assures us her mom will come in and pay after the routine checkup was done while she made the next appointment. Now this patient was a middle-aged adult. Judged visually, I never checked how old she actually is, but it was clear that she was dependent on her mom due to learning difficulties and perhaps other issues. I don't know the exact details, so it would be improper to elaborate. She was super sweet, and I told her that she needed to pay before we see her because it was our policy. And honestly, I didn't think she or her mom would run off with the money, but the boss wasn't there, and I didn't want to take any risks, so I asked to see if her mom would have a problem coming in to pay now. When she came back and repeated that her mom usually comes in to pay when she's done, I assumed that if her mother had an issue with walking or anything physical, the patient would say so. So I ask one more time, "Are you sure?" And I see that she gets nervous and she goes out to ask again. I felt bad putting the pressure on her to go get her mom, but most of our patients are really understanding. So I figured her mom would just pay this time and ask the doctor about it during their next visit. This old white lady comes in, walks up to the desk, and immediately starts going off on me. She tells me about how she's been coming here since I was born, and she has never had to pay prior to treatment. I was very nervous because I haven't had anyone yell at me like that before, but I wanted to be nice and I felt really bad because I'm a pushover just like my mom, but I have the benefit of learning from her mistakes. I tried telling her we are implementing a new policy, and I couldn't waive it for her because the boss is on vacation. But this entitled patient would not let me have a word in, so I waited, patiently, and listened while our 2 back office assistants are standing behind me, clearly visible to all parties. Honestly, I was trying really hard to come up with a workable compromise for her while she was yelling at me. But then EM chose to use the wrong ammunition. She said she knew the boss very well and the boss wouldn't like how I'm treating her. I dropped 90% of my sympathy for her, but I tried to be patient and understanding. Then she threatened to go somewhere else, and that last 10% sympathy faded with her loyalty. I looked her dead in the eye, folded my hands on the desk in front of me, and gently but firmly said, "Okay." The silence was long and deafening, the look on her face priceless. I never broke eye contact, but I broke the silence and kindly informed her that I am in fact the boss's daughter. So she needs to pay beforehand today, and she is free to take it up with my mom when she returns. I also purposefully called her my mom to drive the point home, because normally I would refer to her by title in the office, because I try to make sure no one could tell I'm her daughter, because professionalism. She went from hostile Karen to kindly old grandmother in about 30 seconds. And yes, she paid for our services beforehand. I was shaking with fear, pride, and confidence and anger. She tried to pull her loyalty card, but any patient who actually has enough treatment at our office to make a difference if they leave They know me personally and would recognize me. I told my mom about it when she got back the other day, and she laughed and said I did good because, apparently, EM has never been a patient herself. We make virtually no money off of her specifically. It's been a week, and she hasn't called back about it. 3. Disclaimer. My dog used to be an owner-trained service dog in training. Currently, this is under review, so I'll be saying was in referring to him as a working dog for now. Cotton is my 100-pound, 1-year-old GSD, and I've had quite a few incidents involving entitled parents pawning their child or children off of my dog without permission, in and out of vest. But there is this one incident in particular that definitely takes the cake as the worst EM I've ever met. At the time of this incident, Cole was probably around 9 months. I was at a local pet-friendly park to go over public training with Cole. I go to this particular park quite often, and had never run into any problems until this point. This is probably where I should mention why I had a service dog in training. I had Cole for multiple reasons, but the main reason was for my anxiety. I am prone to severe panic attacks that can hinder my ability to go about my life as normal, and Cole was trained to help with this. During the park trip, things started off relatively normally. I was going over basic commands with Cole, but after a while the park started getting unusually busy for the times I go, and I started feeling slightly overwhelmed. I contemplated leaving, but considering I hadn't even gotten halfway through the training session, I just moved away from the larger crowds near the jungle gym part of the park to a quieter, shadier area. After going through the basics for a while, I move on to the DPT training. For those who don't know, DPT stands for Deep Pressure Therapy. It's a technique used to ground anxiety patients. Essentially, I lay on the ground, and my dog lays over top of me, think weighted blanket. Relaxing slightly, I decide to close my eyes. 2 minutes later, I hear kids running around me, and opening my eyes to a group of 4 to 5 young kids playing tag. No big deal, I thought, so I closed my eyes and ignored them. Literally, moments later, I feel Cole moving more on top of me, and then he all but jerks to the side. I open my eyes and see the group of kids that were playing tag, now standing and sitting around me, petting and pulling Cole's harness. How I didn't notice sooner is beyond me, but nevertheless I was mad, for like 2 seconds, until I reminded myself that these were kids and decided I'd use this moment as a teaching lesson. "Excuse me, please don't pet my dog," I said politely.
"Why not? He's just laying down."
"Well, you have to ask people before petting their dogs. They may not be friendly, or they could be nervous around people. You see, my dog is working. This vest he wears? It says 'do not pet,' because he's doing a very important job right now and can't be distracted. It's for my safety." The kids ask a few more questions, which I answer to the best of my abilities, and they apologize and walk away. I was happy with myself. I managed my anxiety and handled the situation pretty well. I also managed to teach these kids some important manners about meeting dogs and service dogs. I was content. I closed my eyes again and laid back, assuming the situation was over. I was poorly mistaken. I just want to say now that I do not blame these kids for what's about to happen. A good amount of time later, I hear someone's footsteps heading in my direction, allowing me to know someone was walking up to me. But not just walking up to me, they were stomping up to me. And I hear someone obnoxiously clearing their throat. I open my eyes to see this middle-aged woman with her hands on her hips staring at me.
"Excuse me?"
This woman sounded very annoyed and impatient. Now, another thing you should know about my anxiety is that I'm not good at confrontation, like, at all. "Is something wrong, ma'am?" I asked politely, trying to stay calm.
Yeah, something's wrong," she says. "Did you tell my children and their friends they can't pet your dog?"
I don't know who your kid is, but yeah. I did ask a group of kids earlier to not pet my dog. Why?"
Well, that was my kid, and I just want to know why you think you have the right to parent my kid and their friends and tell them what they can and cannot do."
Excuse me? I was stuttering and utterly confused. My people skills aren't great, my social skills lack a lot, and my anxiety makes communication and confrontation really hard. I know these things and accept them. I fully understand that I may not pick up on every social cue and can be overly sensitive at times. But even without my anxiety, you have to keep in mind that I'm a minor who's laying on the ground, with a grown-ass woman literally standing over the top of me. The situation wasn't great.
"You heard me," she shouted. "Are you stupid or something?"
FYI, the word she used wasn't stupid. I swear I was shocked. I couldn't believe an adult actually said that out loud, and to a child nonetheless. I could feel my anxiety raising by the millisecond, and Cole was positioning himself further on top of me to keep me from shaking like a leaf. I didn't respond right away, and it took me a moment to gather myself. "Ma'am, my dog is a service dog. He literally has patches on him that says 'do not pet.' Your kids distracting him can put my life at risk. He's not here for entertainment,
That doesn't matter. You're probably just faking for attention. And besides, your dog's just laying there. He's not doing anything. So my kid and their friends should be allowed to say hi."
At this point, I'm on the verge of tears, and I'm gripping Cole's harness for dear life. I'm at the point where I can no longer formulate words or keep my thoughts straight. I knew I was about to have a panic attack, because I was a mess. Luckily enough, the commotion seemed to have attracted other people, specifically adults that came over to help. I don't remember much, just people talking to EM loudly, and her stomping away with her child, I presume. And some adults crouched beside me asking if I was okay. I managed to convince the adults I was fine, and I called my parents to pick me up. I explained some of the situation, and they were pissed, rightfully so, and even considered filing a report, but I was against it. I never saw the mom or kid again, but I did see some of their friends on a walk past the park. They all apologized to me and said they all told their parents how nice I was being and explaining everything, and they learned about service dogs. EM just took it way out of hand. But it's okay. It's been almost a year since this happened, and I'm over it. I actually find it pretty humorous and laugh at how crazy EM was now. Glad I've never run into her again, though. 4. Some background. There's a pretty big playground close to my home. It belongs to a kindergarten, but they allow people there after 4 p.m. if they follow the rules. There is also a swing for disabled people, but one of the ropes is missing, so a person on a wheelchair wouldn't be able to use it anyway. Everyone uses it, since a few people can swing at the same time, and it's pretty fun to sit there. So me, a pretty young teen, was sitting on that swing. My friend Elle was also there, but her mom called her. She was standing a few meters away and talking on her phone. On my right there were 2 moms of boys, entitled Kid 1 and entitled Kid 2, that were about 4 to 6 years old. Entitled Parent 1 and Entitled Parent 2. The boys were running around and just playing. At some point, Entitled Kid 1 ran up in my direction and put his hands on front of the swing. It swings sideways, but still he could even lose his fingers. I told him to back off since I didn't want him to get hurt. He eventually did move away, only to stand next to the swing. If I hadn't pulled one of the ropes as hard as I could, EK1 would have got hit right in his face and possibly be seriously injured. Instead of being scared, he just started laughing. I was fed up with him, so I just laughed at him in an ironic voice. And that's when Entitled Parent 1 suddenly notices the situation. The conversation went something like this. "What was that for? You don't have to make faces at my boy. Aren't you too old for this?" "What faces? Also, aren't you too old to be on your phone instead of watching your kids?" "Don't tell me what to do with my kid." "I will, since you don't know what you should do." That heavy metal swing almost hit him in the face. He could have died.
"Well, if you don't like it, you can leave and go to another playground. You're too old to be here anyway."
"I'm too old to play and enjoy life after hard work at school." EP1 just mumbled something along the lines of, "Those kids." And instead of watching the damn kid, went with EP2 to smoke. A few moments later, Elle, who heard everything, came back. We had a good laugh and went to sit on stairs. I thought EP1 wouldn't bother me. I couldn't possibly be more wrong. I was just talking with Al. I had my training butterfly knife with me. It wasn't sharp, I'd even say a butter knife would be more dangerous. We were away from the kids, so I thought it would be okay. A few minutes later, I noticed EK1 and EK2 watching. I'm pretty good with my bail song, so I can do some pretty cool tricks. It wasn't my first time having my knife with me in public, so it was quite normal that there were people staring at me. Soon EP2 went closer and tried to touch my knife. While I was doing some easy tricks, I closed it with a quick move and said, "Please don't touch it. It isn't dangerous for others, but you can hurt yourself if you touch it, since it's metal." EK2 wasn't too upset and just ran off, so I was sure he understood and moved on. Later he came back with both entitled parents. Our conversation was even funnier this time.
"Hey, you."
Me?
"Yes, you. Who else could I be talking to?"
I don't know, maybe L? I pointed at my friend.
"Don't be an idiot. So you have that thing in your hands."
You talking about this? It's my training bail song, what about it?
"I don't care what it is called. My son wants it."
If your son wants it, then you should care how it's called. You have to know what it's called so you can buy it. You can buy a pretty cheap one for only 20 PLN as Polish currency. 20 PLN is less than you would pay for a small pizza.
"No, my son wants this one. It looks better than some fucking cheap one."
You don't have to curse, there are kids here. I can't give you mine. It was really expensive and I bought it with my own money. It cost about 200 PLN. If he is really interested in bail songs, I could give him my old one. I don't use it anymore, it was cheap, and I live pretty close, so I can give it him in like 10 minutes.
"No, he wants this one."
At this point, L started giggling a bit. I also couldn't keep a straight face. I smiled. "Then sorry, no. It's not suitable for such a small child."
"Why not? Knife is a knife. If he can have your old one, he can also have this one."
This one is heavier than the other one. He could easily hit himself pretty badly if he dropped it, or have his skin caught between the handles. It is quite painful. Then EP1 stepped in.
"Well, if it's dangerous, you shouldn't bring it to playground."
It's not dangerous for others, it's dangerous for the person using it. Even I hurt myself sometimes.
"Well, it's a serious hazard for our kids, and we don't feel comfortable with you being here with that knife."
All right then. I put the knife in my pocket and hide that pocket under my t-shirt, just to make sure that it won't fall out when I stand up.
"Wait, no. You're supposed to give it to EK2.
At this point, I'm not even responding.
"You either give it to EK2 or we'll call the police. You have a weapon."
Go ahead. Go ahead. I think they would also like to hear about you throwing a lit cigarette into the bushes, where it could start a fire.
"We're not done yet."
They all walked away. Five. I'm a 26-year-old female, and my 21-year-old female upstairs neighbor is horrible. She's been harassing us, mostly aimed at me for months. But I'm just going to go over the major entitled mother part of it. For background, she constantly calls herself a MILF on her social medias, posts soft porn on her Facebook, and so on. She is one of those moms who posts about being a mom, but not necessarily her kid himself. Always either MILF-related or self-praise or being a single mother. But again, the child is almost never actually mentioned, except as a prop. We were out of town when she moved in. We later found out while we were out of town she broke up with her boyfriend, who lived for all of 2 weeks with her, and was on the lookout for her new baby daddy. When we got back to town, she came down and knocked on our door not 2 minutes after we walked in. She somehow didn't see me walk in, while my husband, 28-year-old male, answered the door and stepped outside. I got the dog settled, leashes off, fresh water, etc. There was no introductions of names. She came down with her baby on her hip, trying to tell my husband her lease says there is a shared washer and dryer in the house, and she just wondered where it was in the house, and a few other things she claimed were shared, but we flat out owned. He nicely tells her there is no shared laundry and the rest of the stuff in the house, and excused himself back inside. Talked to her for maybe 2 to 4 minutes. We were in a hurry to leave again, so it was both that he didn't want to talk to her, and we genuinely only had 5 minutes to be home. We both found it odd, and that it seemed she was trying to hit on my husband. Nothing that was a big deal on her wanting my husband, but it freaked me out a bit with the laundry, since the only way she'd know about the laundry room was if she was looking in my windows. I had bought my washer and dryer a year after moving in, and my landlord didn't even know I had one, and was mortified. When I later informed them, she claimed they were giving her use in her lease of it. I only mentioned this to the landlord after she made it a big deal. I tried to tell myself it wasn't a big deal, even if she doesn't have use of the yard. She still might have wanted to see the whole house, and just got a glimpse in my window. Well, she was flat out peeking in the windows, but I later found out had tried to break in an unknown amount of times while we were out of town, both before and after talking to her. I have video of the first time she noticed our camera on that door, and she was mid-shit talk. Hilarious. Months go by and we had gone out of state and had a rental car. We parked it in the road for 15 minutes. She watched us out of the window the entire time. She ended up calling 911, saying she was being assaulted, and started her call crying before she even came downstairs, claiming we were taking up all the parking, when both her parking spots were open. Oh, and one little fact, she had no vehicles. When the police had shown up, we were inside our house, waiting by the door. Rental car is still in the street. She had her dad come and block in our normal vehicle in its normal spot, and they were both screaming outside. Her baby threw up on her bedding, so her dad needed to come pick her up to wash them. Upon seeing the rental car in the road, blocked us in, she then started screaming how unfair it was that she doesn't have a washer and dryer like him, and thus it was all mostly my fault. Then she tried telling the police,
"She's a prostitute. He buys her once a week. She doesn't even live here. She's never here. She's just a stupid fucking fuck bitch. Just a side piece. She's not even on the lease. She's just a fuck bitch."
And I have no idea why someone would keep saying prostitute, that I am being bought, versus just calling me a whore, but she's never called me a whore, just everything else. She continued to call me my husband's side piece and stupid bitch for months, both loudly on the phone outside our windows and online. She never mentioned who his real girl was. I assumed she thought this would cause issues between my husband and I. It didn't. While she was calling me a prostitute, my husband just told her, "She's my wife, what is wrong with you?" Several times, which means she just doubled down screaming I was a prostitute. The cops hate them, and just told us to avoid them until they move out, since their family is well known and very disliked. This resulted in us looking out our windows and running to and from the car, as we were legit scared of them and had no idea what would happen next. This started daily harassment, normal bad neighbor stuff, shitty parking, blocking us in, excessive stomping. She broke our window that is under her stairs from stomping up them so hard, dropping and thudding when we had never heard a thing before. This is going on still. She's admitted to doing it on purpose. She would even borrow a speaker from this one guy to go blast music inside or directly out her window if we were outside. She admitted it to him, and he stopped letting her use it. My cool neighbor got a new job, and turns out they worked with Radio Dude, and he has told her EM hates us. But everything she says about us is clearly a lie, and he thus has stopped hanging out with EM. Since then, she has been fully evicted through the courts for non-payment. She herself has never paid rent the entire time she lived there. Her reasoning was the second signer, not co-signer, so her ex, who only lived there for 2 weeks, would be the only one who would be held accountable for the debt. Ironically, I do know the entire time she ran around screaming, "I pay my rent, so I should get XYZ." She was not, in fact, paying rent. EM spun such a story of how hard it is for her being a single parent to her baby, and they let her stay. It's been 2 months since she was evicted. Of course, she has also been spinning all sorts of bullshit of us doing stuff to her with no proof or something. I don't know what she said to our landlord, but I do know it's horrible. 3 weeks ago, she came down and started talking to my husband while he was burning yard waste. meaning he can't just walk away. She was apologizing for the one time she called the cops. She called them 30 times in 4 hours, claiming we were blasting music and it wasn't even us playing it or at our house. But she meant when she called 911. She said a lot of bullshit and my husband had a very non-committal talk with her. He ended up telling her, "Look, you mind your business and we mind ours. You can use the yard all you want, we don't care, but my wife is not going to want to talk to you at all. So please just leave her and I alone. The yard is big enough so you can do whatever you want without being right next to us." She was on her way upstairs when I came home and we said hi. She's saying it in the most Valley Girl way possible, and that was that. I'll also say I had sunglasses on, but I'm sure I did not have an enthused face, since my husband was texting me updates the whole time, so I already knew what she's been saying. A few hours later, she comes down and comes right up to me. In my head, I was thinking, oh fuck no. I tried all the leave me the fuck alone body language and she didn't seem to care. She starts telling me how she talked with my husband and she just wanted to say sorry to me in person. She then went on to say, "Woman a woman. I was told it was a single man who lived below me. I had no idea you existed. I'm a single mom, so I have to do what I have to do." And that's when I stopped her. I looked her in the face and said, "Thank you for your apology. It's accepted. But as nicely as possible, I'm not as nice as my husband. And I won't sit here and listen to your lies. I don't want to talk to you. Thank you again for the apology."
"It's not a lie. I have the texts. Do you want to see?"
I raised my eyebrow and took a drink of my beer. Now, I know this is a lie, as it's a small town and my landlord was literally at our wedding. He has known my husband since he was 2. He's known both of our parents for decades. Long story short, he knows us and our entire family well, and we know his well. Never mind when she moved in she had a boyfriend, so that she heard it was a single dude downstairs and said, "Hey, I've never met him, but I'd fuck that if he paid my bills." But she called me the prostitute. Even if he was single, why the fuck would that automatically mean I'm a prostitute? And
"I just wanted to be nice, be a good neighbor, and this could all blow over. I already called the landlord and told him everything was fine, and we all agreed we can be friends now. I'm really sorry about what I said and—"
"No? What exactly did you say that you're sorry about? Calling me a prostitute? Or lying that I snort heroin to the police? When you called 911 or all the other times, I'm curious. Use the yard, but I'm not going to listen to this. My husband already told you to leave me alone. I do not want to talk to you. I do not want to be friends." This was when she got super defensive. She had been getting more annoyed every time I cut her off or didn't listen to her shit. Also, I normally don't cut people off, but I both knew she wouldn't stop talking and I could not listen to more excuses of the harassment by telling me she wanted to get with and use my husband. Somehow I was very calm. That scary I'm so mad but I'm smiling kind of mad. So I know I had a grin, but I was having a heart attack on the inside.
"Good, I don't need friends. You can see I have friends over every day. I don't need any more friends. I don't want to be friends with you. I never did. I don't need it."
"Cool." Shrugged and went inside to get a beer. EM, still screaming outside, stomps around for a while, then storms upstairs to bitch about me on the phone, again screaming for a while. Staring down at us from her porch the entire time. She started screaming at me when I peeked around the corner to see if she was staring at us. Obviously she was. She then came downstairs again like an hour later, making a video of the backyard, bitching we removed our own property, horseshoe pit, patio set, grill, and later the fire pit, from the backyard because she can't use them now, claiming she's going to get my vehicles towed and just being obnoxious and loud. I was inside when she came down, but I just went and sat in the same spot I had been when I came back out. I had just gone in for 2 minutes, so she likely saw me go in. She, still loudly talking on speakerphone, came and stood 2 feet from me. The fire pit was in front of me, so she had to stand off to the side. She started walking in circles, trying to get in my view. I started moving my head, looking up in all sorts of directions, because she started fast-walking to keep up. I had headphones in, full blast, and knowing she was looking at my screen, made sure she knew it was full blast. She eventually did a massive huff and stormed off. Met my cool neighbor at the end of the driveway, where she started screaming about us. Cool neighbor told her to stop, and EM stormed off, slamming her door several times when she got upstairs, so we all knew she was mad at us. Now, one of the things she told my husband earlier was, "Sorry, I just found out yesterday the laundry room isn't shared. I had no idea until then." She had been told several times, so many times in fact. A week prior to this, the management had told her to go to her apartment and made her sign a paper for the second time saying she has no use of the washer and dryer and needs to stop telling others she does. No one is locking her out of a shared room. We are locking her out of our private home. She is still telling people we're locking her out. The best part about this EM, she demands everything be shared. The most recent thing she wants is our front porch, even though she has a porch of her own, all because she is a parent and has a toddler. She may be a mother of a toddler, but she's not a parent. I know the father has no custody, so I believe she has full custody, but her parents have the kid all week, except maybe 8 hours one day a week. The grandparents live like 3 minutes away. She parties every day at home, like beers spilling out of your car door at 2 a.m. kind of party. She has stated her parents watch your child, and he has his own room there, not at her apartment. The child is also always dropped off just prior to any management and handyman visits, only for the child to be picked up within 5 minutes of the workers leaving. My neighbors have seen and heard her abusing the child outside before as well. Found out she's been telling landlord we are mean to her and the toddler, and she works 10 hours a day, so her life is just so hard, and all she needs is some help. She hasn't worked in over 2 weeks, and based off the doorbell videos I have, she got fired for being late too many times. Why is she late? She has people over doing drugs and drinking until midnight daily, like clockwork. She could have failed the drug test too, though. She also orders DoorDash, not common in our area, or some sort of delivery on average, once a day, and will spend her entire paycheck on weed delivered from a dispensary, 200 to 300 plus, an extra 50 to 70 for tax and delivery at least. I honestly just can't believe she tried to use wanting to get with my husband as an excuse for calling me that. Even if I wasn't his wife, and he had just been some single dude, was she just trying to scare off girlfriends? She claimed she didn't know I lived there or was his wife until like 3 weeks ago, a massive lie. I know 3 people, besides my husband and I, who told her I am his wife, and she's followed me around outside enough to know where I live. She also kept claiming I wasn't on the lease, like she would know. Or it was her business anyways, I am on it. And also wear 3 wedding rings. They aren't large or flashy, but are noticeable from the distances we have been. I did feel it in my gut from the start she would be an issue, but I never thought it would be this bad. And I thought it would be over like the lawn or parking spots. She wants those too, but that's a different matter. Not her wanting my husband in laundry room, like WTF. People laughed at me when I said I think she tried to break into our house for my laundry room. Of course, everyone knows now I was totally right, but like, what the fuck? Who does that? Obviously, way more to this horrible issue, but this is just a small slice of it. The landlord is claiming to be moving her, but has yet to. We have not been home in over a month due to her and the safety issues she is. We're at the point of contacting a lawyer, and are trying to find other places to move to. Unfortunately, moving before the lease is up is impossible, besides a miracle, but I will have to go home eventually. And I have no doubt she will get physical this time, since I have had to call CPS over her being blackout drunk, alone, with her almost 2-year-old. Police have been to my house at least 3 times in the past month, all called by random people. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to The Impractical Proudness of Parents. Hi Pop. Episode 89. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. As you exit the video, I would appreciate it if you hit the like button. Thank you kindly. This has been a service announcement on behalf of the Hellfreezer Foundation for higher views. Alrighty, let's see. Do we have any shoutouts today? I'm not sure. Today's the 26th, isn't it? No, I think the next one's on Wednesday. Okay, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. All right, are there any things out there which are, it's going to be an entertainment-related question, that you think is a bad adaptation of the source material, but independently is good? Right. The ones that I can name 3. The first one is the Lucifer TV show. As far as adaptations go, it is very bad, right? In fact, terrible, you might say. But as a show itself, it's very, very good, because it's such a very charming cast. I'll be honest with you, the Case of the Week thing, they basically turned Lucifer into a police procedural, right? And those were not the most interesting elements. The most interesting elements were the stuff that had nothing to do with that on the show. But it was a very charming cast, and you could tell that everyone involved, from the writers to producers, everybody just loved what they were doing. And that reflects on the screen. So Lucifer was good as its own, pretty much by the end, unique property. Another one is the Constantine movie. Yes, it's pronounced Constantine. It was a, again, terrible adaptation of the Hellblazer comic. When you make an English character American, you've kind of fucked up from step one right there. And there was other things that didn't quite work. But as a standalone movie, it's decent. It works. It's worth watching. Just, you'll probably enjoy it more if you're not a Hellblazer fan. Another one that I can mention, this will be the last one I mention, is iZombie, right? And I'm hesitant to include this here because it's such a bad adaptation. It's not even an adaptation of the comic book. Completely different characters. The show is very quasi-scientific based, whereas the comic book is supernatural in nature. And the, as I say, characters, plot lines, everything completely different. The only thing they kept was that the character is kind of like a high-functioning female zombie with white hair and pale skin. That's really all they kept from the comic. And the title. But other than that, it was an original idea. And the show itself is very enjoyable, but as an adaptation, it fails. So what are some things you've seen? It needn't just be a movie or a TV show. It could be any other format where something's been adapted, where it works well and it's enjoyable, but it just doesn't stand up well as an adaptation of the source material. Leave your answers in a comment below. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.